Do you even have a balance in your account?
If you do, I'll pay you double, the manager sneered, his laugh echoing across the quiet bank lobby.
Nobody moved. Nobody dared to speak.
The few customers standing in line shifted uncomfortably, staring at the ground, trying not to get caught in the humiliation. What the manager didn't know, and what would change everything, was that the man he mocked was not just another customer. He was the CEO of the very bank whose floors the manager was standing on. The story begins a few days earlier. Amir, a man in his early 40s, walked into the branch dressed simply, in a plain shirt and worn-out shoes. He looked like any ordinary customer, not someone important, not someone powerful. He had the kind of face that life had tested, kind eyes but tired lines etched deep around them. People didn't know who he was because he never flaunted it. Amir was the CEO, but unlike most executives, he believed in humility. He had grown up in poverty, working odd jobs, and had seen firsthand what it felt like to be dismissed simply because of appearances. That was why he often visited different branches of his bank quietly, just to see how employees treated ordinary people. On this particular day, Amir chose this branch because of complaints he had been receiving, whispers from customers about being treated poorly, ignored, or mocked. He wanted to see for himself. When he entered, he stood quietly in line, holding a small withdrawal slip. He wasn't in a rush. He noticed how the tellers barely looked up when customers approached, how the staff spoke with a tone that carried more irritation than respect. He noted the way they treated people, curt, impatient, almost as if they were doing them a favor. Finally, it was his turn. He approached the counter and politely handed over his slip. The manager, a man named Farouk, happened to be standing nearby, watching. He was arrogant, the kind of man who judged people instantly by their shoes, their clothes, and the weight of their wallet. He looked Amir up and down and smirked. "How much are you trying to withdraw?" he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Just a small amount," Amir replied calmly, his voice soft. Farouk chuckled, loud enough for the others to hear.
"Small amount, huh? Do you even have a balance? If you do, I'll pay you double." His words sliced through the room like a cruel joke. A few customers shifted uncomfortably, embarrassed for Amir. The teller froze, unsure whether to continue the transaction or laugh along with the manager. Amir looked at him silently, his calmness unshaken. He had faced worse in his life: mockery, poverty, rejection, but something in his chest ached for all the customers who had to endure this every day. He thought of the old man he had seen earlier, turned away when he asked too many questions. He thought of the young mother with a crying child who was ignored until she begged for help. And now here he was, treated like nothing more than a joke. The teller finally entered Amir's account number into the system. His eyes widened. His hands froze. The figures on the screen were unlike anything he had ever seen. He looked at Amir, then back at the screen, his lips parting in disbelief. The balance was in the billions. Slowly, almost trembling, the teller turned to the manager. "Sir," he whispered, "this account, he's..." But before the teller could finish, Amir placed a hand gently on the counter. "It's all right," he said, his voice steady but commanding. He looked directly at the manager. "You said you'd pay me double if I had a balance. Should I withdraw the entire amount, then? Will you keep your word?" The room fell silent. The manager's smug grin vanished. His face drained of color as he realized the mistake he had made. Customers turned, whispering, their eyes wide in shock. Farouk stammered, I didn't mean, it was a joke. I didn't know." Amir straightened his shoulders, his presence suddenly larger than life. "And that is the problem," he said firmly. "You didn't know. You never cared to know. To you, people are clothes, appearances, assumptions. You judge their worth in seconds, never once considering their dignity. But let me make this clear: every person who walks into this bank deserves respect, whether they have 10 rupees or 10 billion. Gasps rippled across the lobby. The truth of his words struck everyone in the room. Then Amir pulled something from his pocket, his official ID card. He placed it on the counter where everyone could see. "I am Amir Khan, CEO of this bank," he announced. The teller nearly dropped his papers. Customers stared in shock, some even clapped softly in relief, as though justice had finally been served. The manager's knees went weak.
He fumbled for words, begging, apologizing, but the damage was already done. Amir looked at him one last time.
A bank is not just about money, it's about trust.
And trust begins with respect.
If you cannot give that, then you do not belong here.
With those words, he instructed security to escort the manager out, but the story doesn't end with punishment. Amir spent the next hour speaking to the customers directly. He asked about their experiences, listened to their struggles, and promised changes. He ordered immediate staff training to ensure no customer was ever disrespected again. He reminded his team that behind every account number is a human being with dreams, with worries, with dignity. When Amir left the branch that day, he walked out not as a CEO proving his power, but as a leader reminding everyone of the values that matter most: humility, respect, and kindness. The customers left with their hearts lifted, inspired by what they had witnessed. The story spread quickly, whispers turned into news, and soon people across the city were talking about the bank's CEO who stood in line like everyone else, who faced mockery, and who turned it into a lesson that would never be forgotten. And the message that lingered at the end was simply yet powerful: never judge someone by what you see on the surface. Respect is free, and yet it has the power to change lives.
Because the richest wealth is not in your bank account, it's in your character.